This video is brought to you by Antigravity Lithium-Ion Batteries, used by Monster Energy Star Racing Yamaha and Monster Energy Kawasaki and many more teams. And you can use the same battery as Eli Tomac, Jason Anderson, and others. Antigravity batteries offer more power and capacity than the competitors because they give you a larger lithium battery pack. But additionally, they offer features like the world's first batteries with built-in jump starting that will never leave you stranded. So check them out at antigravitybatteries.com.
Welcome to new bike season, everybody. 2023 is here, and you're staring at the fairly new 2023 Kawasaki KX250. So we're here at Perris Raceway, the oldest track in Southern California. Obviously, Perris has new owners. The track has been updated. It's always fun to come here. It has good ruts for Southern California standards. And the dirt is more clay-based with hard pack underneath, standard California track. But we are here to test this thing out, give you guys a first impression. I have a couple kids here because you just don't want to listen to some old dude on a 250. Hunter Yoder, my son Aden Keefer, they're going to ride it. They're going to give you that feedback as well. Cool for Hunter to be here because he's been on other brands, never actually rode a Kawasaki. So get a little piece of his information and pass it on to you guys. But what's new on here? I'm going to read what Kawasaki has done to this bike in 2023. They went up to the new intake valves, which features a 1.5 millimeter narrower pitch on the intake valve. So for those of you guys who are wondering what that is, the valve seats deliver increased cylinder filling efficiency and improved combustion for better peak performance. And what Kawasaki is trying to do here is, for the most part, this bike over the last couple years has lost a little bit of low-end torque. And then they kind of move that power to the mid and top. So they're trying to increase that mid and top power, but they have a new downdraft style intake duct, which is trying to draw the air differently and give you more torque feel. As you guys know, the torque king in the 250 class is a Yamaha. So the green side is trying to bring some of that back, give you some more torque feel, as well as keep that peak horsepower that you love on a 250F. You have a new exhaust header pipe. It's 100 millimeter longer. Ignition timing is different. And of course, the connecting rod, big end bearing, is a little bit different as well. That's for reliability. And the cone disc spring hydraulic clutch push rod has been changed. So now you got a little bit of a lighter pull at the skinny blade that the clutch lever delivers for you guys. And of course, on the suspension side of things, we're going to bring in Kaipo Chung at the end of this thing right here and give you what you guys want to know about the KYB suspension. Because unique to Kawasaki, the 250 side uses KYB, the 450 side uses Showa, so that is unique. For those of you that want to know why they do that, we'll explain that when Kaipo comes around and give you guys some information on why they split the differences with the suspension companies. Also, another reason that I kind of feel like this is a big upgrade, and it may not be on paper, is they went to a 110 rear tire instead of a 100. The 100 super skinny. They did not go to a 2.15 rim. They stayed with the 1.85 rim. They're on MX33 tires, unlike last year where they had MX3S tires, which is a very sad day for me because the MX3S is a superb tire. Dunlop still sells the MX3S front. So if you guys are out there and want an MX3S front, you can still do that. And also, new foot peg design that is 5 millimeters wider, more like the 450. So that is also changed. But otherwise, we're going to break this thing down. We're going to get Hunter on this bike. Enjoy watching him ride because no one wants to see me ride this thing. I'm on a 250. Fat guy in a little coat. Kind of like that. But that's me. Bigger guy in a 250. No one wants to see that. So we'll be right back. We're going to talk about this thing and give you guys some information. Perris Raceway. Fun day today. The track was dissed up really nice. We had all the Pro Circuit guys out here and Jason Anderson, so forming the lines was really nice. We didn't have all these lame media tester guy lines where they're all sharp and blown out, so it's nice to have some good guys, some quality guys out here to form the lines. So I rode this thing. I had a lot of time, obviously, with Aden on the 2022 edition. This is Hunter Yoder. He rode Supercross last year for the Tylube Honda team. Basically been a Honda guy for how long?
I think probably for about 4 years now. I rode for Geico for about probably say 4 years. And then after that, I've ridden Hondas for about 2 years. So we're going on a long time now on Honda big bikes, and it was good to get out and try something new today, something that I'm not really used to.
First time on a Cowie?
Yeah, first time on anything other than red.
Wow. All right, so you Honda guys out there want to know an opinion. If you're thinking about a green bike, he probably would be the guy to listen to. So this is the first impression, okay? So we got 4 hours to ride this bike. Right now I'm looking at the hour meter. It's 3.1 hours. So this is our brief first impression. We're going to dive in deeper. There might be some things that pop up a later time. So if you guys freak out on me 2 months later and say, you didn't talk about that in the first impression video, this is what we just feel here today. So take it or leave it. This will give you a bump start on what you might want to purchase come 2023. So comparatively from the 2022 bike, I do feel like it has more pulling power out of the corner. I don't feel like there's any more low-end RPM response from last year. I feel a little bit more mid-range, and I didn't notice, but I've talked to other guys that we'll get here, and I didn't notice any more top-end over-rev pull. Maybe a little bit on top-end, but over-rev to me feels about the same as 2022. So me and Hunter were talking before the camera started rolling. We're talking about how usually you get on new bikes and the engine braking is really heavy and you have a lot of pitching and the motor just tight. This feels a little bit looser, free. It spools up really quick, so it has a lot of exciting power, but for me, that excitement is not directed towards the top end. It's more bottom to mid oriented. So coming from a Honda, getting on this today, what'd you think?
I thought it was great, honestly. Obviously, over the years, I've been privileged enough to be able to ride brand new bikes all the time and be on teams, you know, with the top equipment. But I wasn't really a fan ever of the brand new bikes as some people were. I never liked the tight frame feeling or just the tight feeling on the bike in general, where everything feels bound together. And I got on this thing today. I believe I was the first one to ride it, and it just felt like broken in and nothing that I would want to change really. Frame, suspension, motor-wise, like all of it just felt broken in right off the bat.
So engine-wise, you're coming off of obviously you rode Hondas, and you have some built Hondas. You've obviously rode stock Hondas. How's the engine character?
Like we were talking about, I think I didn't ride last year's bike at all, so you could kind of fill me in on that a little bit. But the second and third gear I was really impressed with. Short straightaways coming off of jumps or even just right out of a corner, I felt sometimes I didn't even have to shift out of second gear. It would pull me to the next corner or off landings of jumps. I never felt like I had to upshift and downshift a bunch. It just felt like it had a good power band, so to say, and the bottom end needs maybe a little bit of work. It just felt a little bit slow off the bottom, but mid to top was right where I would like it in a motorcycle.
So for me, I tried the white coupler and then the stock coupler. White coupler will give you a little bit more RPM response from low end, but it will suffer up on top. Just so you guys know out there, low end RPM response and bottom end are two separate categories when we test. So the low end RPM response is just the crack of this throttle, just that whop, whop, whop. That is very exciting. That is very crisp. That is very connected to the rear wheel. The bottom end is like as you're transitioning out of area 2 to area 3 of the corner and then pulling out, this is where that torque feel is felt. And I do feel like the changes that they made with the intake and the intake valves, I feel like I got some of that a little extra in 2023. It's not a huge difference, but I do feel that. My son Aden has a lot of times on bikes, and he feels it a lot more than I do, and then Hunter coming from a Honda. So before we move on to the suspension side of things, Hunter, so coming from a Honda, Hunter, just so these Honda owners understand, what's the engine character, what's the differences between the Honda and the Kawi?
Honda has the better bottom end, I would say. Just from the beginning of the corner, I would say, to about middle, and once you get to that over rev or revved out spot where you're kind of reaching the top, kind of falls off a little bit, where this Kawi from the middle of the corner to the top of the power band is it's really sweet. It feels just like it's in the power and the meat the whole time, and that was one thing I really enjoyed about this bike today.
Yeah, so like what he's saying is when you're rolling the corner, you're mid-corner, and you're going to accelerate out, I think you could stretch out second gear longer than you could with a Honda. So I think that is safe to say I agree with that as well. Now, moving on the suspension side of things, I tried to get Kaipo Chung from KYB in here, but he's too scared to be on camera. So what Kaipo told me was that they went to a little firmer setting out back to try to match the firmer feel of the fork. But in 2023, they actually toned down the valving a little bit, left the same spring rate in here to try to bounce the bike out. And that is what I felt out here today. I felt like the rear of the bike was up on acceleration. It wasn't so squatty feeling. And the fork is still more of a performance-oriented, stiffer natured feeling for a 250. Usually I get on a 250 and it feels soft and it moves a lot and I get a lot of dive. I don't get this on the KYB fork here. So obviously it's still new. We have 3 hours. It's going to take some time to break in, so that firm feel can be some of that. But what I did, because I felt like the bike was a little bit deflecty when I'm trying to set up for my corners, and lean angle traction was not optimal for me. So I ended up slowing the rebound down 2 and then softening the fork 2. So what that does, the old 2-for-1 saying back in the day, what we used to do is I'm slowing this fork down, which essentially is stiffening it up, but then I'm softening that compression feel to get some more of that tire contact patch on lean angle. So I did that. They want to run 100 to 102 millimeters of sag out back to bring that up to kind of balance with this fork out. Hunter's 130, 140 pounds?
Yeah, about 145, 150. Really just depends on what's in the diet that week, you know? How much time we got in the gym or on the road bike.
So I'm 170 pounds, and they found the sag for both of us with no problem. But you rode it before I messed with it, and then I told you to go out on it. Didn't tell you what I changed, and what'd you think of suspension?
This morning, I like a bike that's not high in the back end, but I would say I prefer way more if it's taller in the back than lower.
You like that feeling a little bit more?
Yeah, not stink bugs, but not choppered out either. I like to be able to. It just gives me more confidence in the ruts, just for my own sake. And I felt that the guys at Kawasaki, I believe they set my sag at 100 even.
So were you stressed out when they said 100? You're like, oh boy, it's gonna be too high.
I usually run mine at about 105 on the Honda. So I try to stay pretty open-minded when it comes to these kind of things, and they obviously work on these bikes all the time. So I ran it, and I felt 100 was, honestly, it was right where I wanted it. Maybe a little bit high, but I think by the end of the day, too, I didn't get on it, and it didn't negatively affect me.
So the changes that I made, you rode this stock, and then the changes that I made, did it improve the same areas as it did for me?
Yes, I think I'm going to speak for both of us. I believe we both struggled with the forks. They weren't bad, just in the high-speed stuff. Just felt not out of control, but just a little wobbly in the front. And then in some of the flat corners where there's no ruts or berms, we just it just gave me more confidence, and it felt like more front-end traction. I never felt like it was going to wash out from under me and I was going to lose it.
Yeah, so for me, same thing. It felt a little vague on the tire when I'm on lean angle stock earlier in the day. And then as the track got hard pack and bumpy, I lost some of that, and I didn't have a lot of feel. I'm a front-end steering guy, so softening this up a little bit, which is, man, it's so strange for me because usually the other direction when I'm on a 250, usually I have to stiffen it up. I actually had to slow it down and soften it. So for me, that is a positive sign, because as this fork breaks in, maybe it won't be so soft and wallowy. So now I'm going to have some more dampening feel, which I think I will like that as the bike gets older. So for me, the suspension is more built based on performance. You can actually push it. Jason Anderson was here today riding a stock KX250. It's insane.
Insanely fast.
Insanely fast.
Very impressive.
Like, it's nice to see fast guys ride stock bikes, just so you know, like, hey, it's not all factory bikes. The guy just knows how to ride a dirt bike real fast, and he rode real fast on a stock bike, so it's very impressive. All right, last thing, ergonomically, you come from a Honda, which is the best fitting, feeling motorcycle there is out there. I think it feels similar. They use the same bar bend. I feel like the schematics of the rider triangle is very close, so I feel I'm 6 foot. I don't mind it. You're 5'9", 5'8"?
5'8", probably on a good day. But when I got on it this morning, you know, from down to the pegs to the bars, it just I felt comfortable on it. And comfort is a big thing for me. Obviously, it's important for everybody, and comfort gives you confidence, I believe. And I never felt out of place this morning.
I mean, you didn't even adjust the bars. You just hopped right on and did a little lever thing, and that was it.
Yeah, I just adjusted the front brake lever. It was a little bit high for me, and I put it down, and I hopped on it, and I would say I would go same speed as I would on my Hondas. So,
you like the blade feel of the levers, yes or no?
I do, actually. I've never been one to run different levers, aftermarket levers. I've always ran stock ones, and that was one thing that I felt right at home with, was the levers. They felt great. I felt comfortable with them.
I'm out on them. I feel like they're too skinny, but that's why they make different parts. You can buy something different, right? So overall, ergonomically, again, 6 foot, I feel like it's right up there with the Honda. It feels nice, and it's a very fun bike to ride. So one more thing before we leave Hunter. Ergonomically, it's nice, right, for a 6 foot rider. I'm 6 foot, but I feel like the seat itself, it's brand new, but it's very soft, so it feels squishy. So when I'm getting in deep into a rut, I feel like I'm almost butt in low a little bit, and it was an illusion because I'm actually sinking into this foam. So for me, I would get a little bit of a firmer foam, same height, but just a little bit firmer density, just so it won't break down as fast. And trust me, when you wash this bike and you keep washing it, this foam breaks down real quick. And out here in the sun and in California, it softens them up even worse. So just know that your foam's going to break down here very soon. All right, you ride a Kawasaki a lot. You're Team Green Kids. We're not going to be Mr. I'm pro Kawasaki. We're going to be an objective test rider hat, okay? There's a gentleman or a woman out there, hey, I got a 22 KX250. I want to think about getting a 23. Is the engine that much better with the changes that they made? What's the good things about the 23 engine character?
Well, I think the engine has its good and its bads. I think that the mid to top has improved a lot since last year's bike. So yeah, the 22 bike has a lot of bottom. But compared to this year's bike, I feel like it doesn't have the bottom that it has, but it doesn't fall on its face when you hit third and fourth gear. I feel like it just keeps pulling.
So the transmission obviously is different. So even Hunter said that, like the transition from second to third, you don't have to have as much throttle. The recovery is better. So in our world, that's what we call it, recovery time. Okay, so you like the mid and top. You actually mentioned, this was actually better than one of my first spec race bikes that I had back in early 2022.
Yeah, I feel like my old race bike, it had the bottom, but it just fell on its face after a while.
So this thing stretches out a little bit more. Suspension-wise, you ride revalved stuff a lot, but this is stock KYB. How do you feel? Obviously, it's not hugely rough today. It's not a lot of huge bumps out there, but so what is the difference between a valve set of Pro Circuit stuff and some stock stuff for the people out there?
Well, I think so. My Loretta's bike that I had, we valved it for a little stiffer for Loretta's bums. But I feel like out here, I feel like it's fine, honestly.
Comparatively, comfort is close?
Yeah, I feel like once it breaks in, you kind of get rid of that very stiff feel. Maybe stiffen it a little bit.
I had to go softer.
I honestly agree with you that it was a little
So usually that's what we're talking about. Usually you would have to go stiffen the KX250 up or another bike, a CRF 250. You need to have a little bit stiffer. But this bike, I had to go a little bit softer and slower, which is kind of a different feel.
Yeah, I agree with that here too.
So for me, we talked about ergonomics. You have no problem. You leave your stuff stock. They do have some new pegs. Do you even feel that when you're riding?
To be honest, they kind of feel the same to me, to be honest.
I don't notice anything either, guys. Like, they did a 5 millimeter wider, and it's -3 back, which I didn't know. So it's a little bit wider on the peg, and the peg has moved back a little bit. I didn't notice a huge difference. I do know that the muffler is still loud. Doesn't sound the greatest.
I have to disagree with you. I feel like it's kind of the raspiness has kind of gone down a little bit.
So you think the raspiness is a little bit less?
A little bit less than last year's bike.
Clutch feel, because they said they changed the clutch to where it actually is a little bit softer. I do feel like it's a little bit easier for a hydraulic clutch.
I do feel like it was a little bit easier, yes, in the pull range, but I didn't really notice it that much.
All right, guys. Well, what he's trying to say is he doesn't really notice that much difference between a 23 and a 22. That's basically what I got. He feels a little bit more mid to top end range. So it is a little bit better of a bike. You know, this is our first day on it. We're going to break it down more, but you have a 22, maybe it's a $2,000 difference. Maybe it's not completely worth it to spend $2,000 more on a new bike. Maybe keep your bike and do some mods to it, and maybe see what Kawasaki comes out in 2024. But I do feel like Kawasaki is moving forward to be a better 250F in the shootout realm of things. It's getting closer to the KTM style top end with a little bit closer range. I still feel like it's fairly close to a YZ250F. I would disagree with Hunter saying the Honda has more bottom end. I feel like this has a little bit more snap and excitement and low end feel than a Honda. And you've ridden Hondas.
I'm going to have to agree with you on that part. I kind of got a little confused when he said that, but I can kind of tell when that's all you've rode is just Hondas and you don't really know anything else, then that might be just his opinion then.
Yamaha's still king and low end.
Yeah.
Still king. But stable bike, corners well. We didn't even talk about cornering, but man, it corners as well as a Honda, I feel like. The front end's a little bit tall, but as it breaks in, I think that's going to settle. Still has a 33 front tire on it, Dunlop 33. I wish I had a 3S. We could switch that up and get more front end traction. But man, Kawasaki is doing great work to make these bikes a little bit better. We had Mitch Payton here today, and the designs that he works on to make his bikes faster for his race team, he even commented that Kawasaki did a great job on what they did to the head and the intake valves to make this a little bit better. It seals better, gives you a little bit more power. So that's what we felt here today at Perris. So stay tuned for more information, more settings. If you have any questions, Kris at KeeferInkTesting.com. I'm happy to help you guys out. If I missed something here in this video, I didn't cover it, hit me up. I'm happy to answer those questions for you there. And stay tuned for more. We're going to have some settings as well as some mods and some tips you can do to make this bike even better over on RacerXOnline.com, which is right here. Don't forget, 12 issues, $30 for the publication side of things. There's still great things to read over there. And we'll be back with more 2023 tests. 'Tis the season. That's right. Happy New Year in the motorcycle motocross world. See you on the next go-around.